Hey everyone, this is Minutia Minute, and welcome to the second part of this week's Wednestopia for March the 12th. If you didn't get a chance to check out my last video, be sure to do so. I reviewed Batman number 29, Justice League number 4, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 32, and finally Hawkeye number 17, or at least I sort of reviewed that one. You'll know what I mean once you've watched the video. So without further ado, let's get right into the rest of this week's books. So first up, I want to talk about Star Wars number 15. So basically, this has been a book that's almost been a lot like Revival, in the sense that it's really been one big, long story. The first 12 issues was just kind of one big, long-running story of the Rebels trying to find a secret base. And we're still kind of on that story. We did have a brief break with issues 13 and 14, where we kind of followed Darth Vader and one of his sort of proteges, I guess you would describe them as. But now we're out of that, and we're back into the main story. I liked this issue overall. This wasn't my favorite issue. Basically, Princess Leia has come up with a plan, which is she's found the perfect place for the Rebel Alliance, but it requires her hand in marriage to the prince of this planet. And then they will form this alliance, and it'll be great for the rebellion. But of course, this is one of those political arranged marriages that we've seen for centuries, and we've seen stories about them for centuries. And while it kind of fits into the style of sort of that classic Star Wars, kind of feel, it feels like kind of a trite story. It isn't really blowing me away. And to kind of make matters worse, the artwork in this book really, really disappointed me. I wasn't sure when this series started that Carlos de Anda, or however you say his name, was going to be a really great fit for the Star Wars universe. He's done some great work. I remember when he did an issue of Kid Eternity, or it was like a one-shot that was really good. And I was thinking it'd be really exciting to see him on this, and then lo and behold, he ends up on Star Wars. And it just seemed like a really, really strange match. It took a couple issues for me to warm up to it, but once I did, I really found that I enjoyed his artwork. And the person we have in this issue, and I'm not sure what his name is, or her name is, but it's like they look kind of like Carlos de Anda's art, but unfortunately, it's just not good enough. And the thing that really kills it are the faces. Particularly Princess Leia looks kind of like olive oil. Like everyone, like olive oil from Popeye, by the way. Everyone just kind of looks a little bit weird and contorted. It's kind of cartoony and just very off-putting, and I really didn't like it. I'm hoping that this person isn't going to be on the book for too long, and we'll get back to the regular artist. Because the truth is, there aren't that many issues left of this Star Wars ongoing series, which is really sad, because I was hoping this would be one of those stories that, we could just go on. And, there's a lot of story you can tell between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. So, like, the idea of having, like, 100 issues of this or something like that, for me at least, was really appealing, because, that's the most fun time to read Star Wars stories, because it has the least amount of continuity involved. It's just Luke, Han, Leia having adventures in the galaxy and seeing where the Rebel Alliance takes them. Unfortunately, though, of course, Disney has announced that in 2015, all the rights for Star Wars is going back to Marvel. So, of course, all of Dark Horse's series are ending, including this one. Obviously, this will be in time just, for the new movie to come out, which is next year already, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, there can't be more than, I would assume 9 or 10 issues left. I'm not really sure. I will, of course, be sticking around for the long haul. I think that, as long as Brian Wood's still on the book and it doesn't kind of veer off into just sort of side stories, and we continue with this main story setup, I really want to see what he can make of the last few issues, even though it is going to go away. I really, really find myself wondering, what are the trades going to be like for this book? Because, I would assume that basically all of Dark Horse's trades, they've got 20-plus years of Star Wars trades now. I'm assuming those are all going to go away, and everything's going to fall back to Marvel. I don't know if Marvel is going to be printing these as trades. I kind of wonder, because, this is a time period in history, or in Star Wars history, they're telling that Marvel already told back in the 70s when, Star Wars was originally with Marvel. So I don't know if it's even to their advantage to print these books as a trade down the line. And with the new movie coming out, obviously there's all kinds of new continuity, and all the expanded universe stuff is kind of going to go away. So I'm really wondering what's going to happen to all these Dark Horse stories. As I said in a video relatively recently, Star Wars is what kind of started me on comics, and it was the Dark Horse Star Wars universe that basically taught me how to read comics and taught me how to think about comics, and just some great stories over the years that are potentially just gonna kind of go away, at least probably for a while, until Marvel kind of decides what they want to do with everything. So anyway, kind of a tangent there, but long story short, Star Wars 15 wasn't exactly my favorite issue, but I am in it for the long haul. If you haven't been picking this up, I don't know if this is the best time to start, but at the same time, I don't know if I want to recommend you wait for a trade, because I don't know if there's going to be one. I would assume they'll get a trade out right before they sort of close up shop on Star Wars, but who knows. The second book I have to review in this video is FBP, formerly Collider, issue number 8. And I have to say, this is a book that I was really seriously thinking about dropping after the first arc. The first 4 issues really were hard for me to get through. Like, I bought a few issues before I actually started reading it. And so I sat down to read it. I figured I'd just read the first arc all together. And I was having trouble, like kept having to go back because I'd have trouble keeping the characters separate. The story just wasn't that engaging. You kind of get to know what the universe is like, but at the same time, you already kind of have an intuitive feeling of what they're going for without them having to kind of explain it to you. And all the characters seem very, very two-dimensional. There didn't seem to be, while they were dealing with real physics concepts and real theoretical physics, they weren't really digging that deep into physics or philosophy or anything. So the whole experience really felt kind of flat. I decided to stick around with it just to kind of see what was going to happen. And we seem to have been on kind of a steady incline ever since then. Issue 5, we get to follow Alex. We get to find out a little bit more about his history, give him a little bit more of a reason to be around, a reason for us to kind of follow him as a character and his sort of quest to figure out, find was it Lance Blackwood, I think is his name, and find out about the history of his father and yada, yada, yada. And then issues 6 and 7, we get what I felt like was a really welcome addition of Rosa Reyes, I think her name is, who is going to be Alex's new partner, a much more interesting character than Alex himself, really hopefully going to provide a really good dynamic for this story. And so the last couple issues we've been kind of following her, and we've been picking up steam, and now issue 8 we're on to our next sort of major story arc, which is Wish You Were Here. This is part 1, and it was pretty darn good. I found, having those couple issues to build up the character, having that first arc to kind of build up the world, and all of a sudden, go figure, you've got yourself a pretty darn good comic book. It took 8 issues to get here, but I really found myself enjoying this one. Even the art seemed to really fit together with the story they were telling, more so than the first few issues. I don't know if there was a little bit more detail to it or what, but it seemed to really, really gel. As far as the story goes, I can explain what happened, but it's going to be kind of difficult because there were a lot of things sort of starting to go on at the beginning of this new story arc. First off, we've got Rosa and Alex, who basically go off to basically like kind of the Grand Canyon or some kind of a canyon, except it's a special place where, and it's actually called Newton Canyon after Nettie Newton, not Isaac Newton, which is kind of an ironic moment in the story. But basically, you can go into this canyon and you can throw a ball over it, and it'll disappear, and then it'll reappear somewhere down the line. And and the myth is, if it reappears, like you go there with a fiance and you throw the ball in, and if it comes back to both of you, then you're destined to be together, basically. They throw the ball in, it doesn't come back out. Later, they decide to go get a beer at the bar. They start playing pool. They get in trouble with these people who think they're basically being scammed by these FBP agents. And all of a sudden, the ball comes back at just the right moment, which is, of course, fantastic. Meanwhile, you've got Cicero, and someone who I think is a new character, someone Cicero's known for a long time. that is now a woman, used to be a man, and they're kind of discussing everything that's going on. One thing leads to another, and we get the final page of the story, which sort of brings the Cicero story into the regular FBP story, and in a way that's very, very unexpected. And that's all I can say about that, because it's not one of those endings I'm going to spoil for you, because I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know how to spoil it, because it's so just kind of like, oh, what's going to happen next? So, like I said, the characters are really starting to come into play. I care about Alex now. I care about Rosa. I even care about Cicero a little bit. And in addition to that, as I was saying before, like, it's annoying that they don't really dig into these physics concepts or these sort of almost philosophical concepts. And in this book, they actually do that. Cicero talks about Plato. He talks about the allegory of the cave, which is one of the great Plato sort of assertions, I guess. That's the wrong word to use. Sorry about that. But one of Plato's great, I can't think of, what do they call his, one of Plato's great sort of theoretical concepts or sort of stories. And we get some more. We also get to talk more about the multiverse, and while they're playing pool, they're talking about how there's an infinite number of possibilities, but all of these seemingly random things have brought them to this one place to play pool. And she's a beginner at pool, and yet she's playing this amazing game, and it gets them in trouble, and just all that stuff. Like, those are the kinds of physics ideas, and sort of the crazy probabilities, and the Platonic philosophy of physics, and all those kinds of things are what I get excited about when I hear about a book called Federal Bureau of Physics, and they delivered on this issue. So, like I said, this has been on a steady incline for me over the last about 4 issues, with number 8 finally really kind of hitting it out of the park. I enjoyed this book immensely, a lot more than I was expecting to, and with a cliffhanger ending like they had at the end of this book, I will be excited for issue number 9. And last but not least, I have Manifest Destiny to review, which is probably the book I was most excited for this week, which is odd because it doesn't seem like Manifest Destiny is a book that would particularly appeal to me. I mean, basically, it's just Lewis and Clark with monsters, which is like, I mean, how many times, Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, or Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, like those kinds of things, where there are actual historical figures like, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, or, fictional, like, Jane Austen's books. Like, that kind of thing has been super done to death, and something that I wasn't interested in the first place. The thing that sold me on Manifest Destiny when I first picked it up was really 100% solely the art. And then all of a sudden, I got into the story, and I found myself really getting into it. So, like, what makes it rise above? Like I said, the art, but also, like, even though it is Lewis and Clark and monsters, the monsters get kind of a great historical twist. And I think that's the key to kind of the brilliance of this story, especially because right now we're on zombies, which is kind of like the lowest of the low when it comes to, like, derivative ideas. But they aren't our monsters, and they aren't the zombies of today. These are the monsters that the more superstitious people on Lewis and Clark's real expedition, like, these are the monsters that they would have dreamt about in the night. So it's like, again, monsters with a historical twist. That's the only way I can really think to explain it. We're kind of on the penultimate issue of this sort of plant zombie infection that they found themselves in at the beginning of their journey. Things are clearly going to kind of come to a head. They've got Greek fire that they are preparing to unleash upon the forest, basically burn the whole place to the ground if they have to. And next issue, I'm guessing everything's going to kind of wrap up, and we'll be on to the next story arc. My big question for this series in the long term is, like, is this just going to be a Monster of the Week thing? If it is, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be on it, even with the art being as fantastic as it is and the coloring being so vibrant. I don't know if that's enough to justify it if it's just going to be Monster of the Week. I really, really hope that Chris Dingus has a master plan here and something that's going to build up on top of what they've sort of started here with these first few issues. And once we get into the second and third trade, we really start to build a world that has really built on itself, and we get some higher level stories. But for now, I gotta say I'm just enjoying the ride. So if you're not picking up Manifest Destiny, I do recommend you check it out. If you haven't been able to pick up the first few issues, I think the trade is coming out, not this issue, but the issue after it. The trade will be out, collecting the first 6 issues. So please check that one out, if nothing else for the amazing artwork by Matthew Roberts. I can't say enough about how good the artwork is in this book. So anyway, that's all I've got. The last book I have to review. Thank you for sticking with me for 2 videos this week. I just didn't kind of want to talk for that long. I just felt like that would have been a little bit too much. My voice would have gone a little too hoarse. I hope I didn't just completely plug up your subscription feed. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed my reviews this week. And of course, I'll be back next week on our next Wednestopia. Thanks, everyone.